Hi, call me Ace. Welcome to hell. Now, you could explain the Encore levels as being a non-canon jumble of rooms from other levels with new bits mixed in to have a big challenge to top it all off after you've completed the game's main story. However, this is boring and lame and dumb and frankly stupid. That is giving up on your dreams of everything being canon. And yes, that did imply I'm considering doing another video like this for the secret levels. This video is to prove that the Encore levels are not canon to the story, but an alternate version of events where V1 is like a couple hours late to the whole hell thing. Got held up in traffic or some shit like that. Here we go. Now, your first question is probably something like, how are you going to explain how the rooms are completely different? But fuck you, we'll get into that later. For now, we're tackling a less immediate but more interesting question. How did all those stronger enemies get there? Well, I'm sure it'll shock you to know that I have a theory. I wasn't just making a little joke when I said this was Ultrakill, but V1's a couple hours late. In Ultrakill proper, or Timeline A, V1 is extremely gay and thus walks very fast, meaning it reaches hell pretty far ahead of most of the other machines, and those machines are slowly catching up to V1 throughout the game. In the Encore, or Timeline E, V1 arrives way later, so all the other machines are already there. But that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is how all the demons and husks from later in the game got shut up like 7 layers, and why there are radiant enemies. I think what happened is that all these husks and demons saw this crisis of the machines rampaging through hell, and that there was a grand total of 1 angel on the case, and realized that if there's a physical entrance to hell that the machines came through, then maybe there's an exit. This newfound motivation, combined with the fact that the angels are nowhere to be found except for the typical virtues, which are getting their asses handed to them, fueled a mass effort to climb out of hell. We see that a fair amount succeeded in 0-E. Unfortunately, that's when V1 showed up. The Radiance is a strange thing to canonize, since it's exclusively been in the Cybergrind and Sandbox, which are technically canon, but only as canon as video games are to real life. The Cybergrind is V1 gaming, change my mind. However, if we take away the rainbow flare that only exists for us to tell them apart from normal enemies, they're just better enemies. I think that's an appropriate interpretation to use, since this is much later, and most of the enemies left in the struggle, especially further up, are only alive because they're experts at fighting. The husks that are left were soldiers in life. The demons have been battle-hardened by the machine crisis. The machines have probably found better parts to make them faster and more durable. That is what I think the Radiant enemies represent. Don't ask me how Radiant idols work with the lore. I don't want to spend any more time justifying Radiant enemies. Moving on. So, finally, we're getting to the jumbled up rooms. Now, my theory for 0-1 is that this is a different site that was excavated and built much later in the project and connects to a different entrance to hell. We know that this is possible from 0-5's ending, where we see different entrances to hell. But to explain the layout changes properly, I want to explain how I interpret Prelude's design in the first place. Into the Fire, first contact with the husks and demons. This is essentially an excavation project still, so we haven't reached the part where they start installing a shit ton of more complex machinery. This is why it's less hot and more just dirty. The Meat Grinder, a disposal unit for the husks' corpses, and if any live husks get disposed of by the machine, that's just a bonus. Double Down, the power source, essentially a massive battery for the Meat Grinder. A one-machine army, the cooling system for said massive battery. All of the heat that would otherwise cause a meltdown is blown into these rooms. Cerberus, the point where humanity stumbled upon something it really shouldn't have. A great door with 2 stone guardians. Humans did not make it farther than this, but machines did. I think this site was designed kind of in the order that we travel through it. It was just digging for a while, then humans decided to make the machines to kill and dispose of the husks and demons they discovered. Then they realized that these needed to be ventilated, like, a lot. Then they found hell. Yeah. The site we are traveling through in Timeline E was designed with all of these parts in mind from the start. They made it much more compact so that if they needed more than one of these machines per dig site, they could implement them with minimal trouble. The machinery was evidently shut down by a machine, maybe V2, and V1 needs to get it up and running again so it can leave. You may question why there's ice and water in this site. I believe that with this much more compact design, the engineers realized that the fans weren't enough to keep it from melting, so they designed a joint air and water cooling system. Now, can I explain why most of the ice in the level becomes lava in the second half? No. Also, the ice being everywhere makes me think that the cooling system probably leaked, so the site was probably on the verge of a meltdown when V1 left. I mean, it makes sense. It looked way hotter than any other Prelude level when I was playing it. 1-E. This will be much easier to explain. Since we entered through a different site, this is a different part of Limbo, a much more evil-looking part of Limbo. Now, judging by the way we've seen this skybox work in the past, it seems to pick a coloration based on what's going on inside the box. We see this in 1-2, where everything's on fire and the skybox just sort of rolls with it. Side note, I really wanted the trees to not have their holographic leaves in that section of 1-2, and I'm still mad about it. 1-E sees the aftermath of street cleaners rolling on through here as well. The ground is covered in ash and dust, and the skybox just sort of rolls with it. In the second half, you break the system. It's that simple. The big room with no floor is probably the hardest thing to explain in this entire level, but I think I know what it is. It's an automatic security system to not let unauthorized personnel in. Since it's designed by angels, and all the angels we've seen have wings, the floor is a trap for husks that have gotten too close to breaking the system. Also, not to brag, and definitely not to tease a future video, but I have beaten the floorless encounter with just a revolver, shotgun, and feedbacker. And if it was teasing a video, it wouldn't be a video you could count on releasing soon. It would need all the Encore levels to be out, so it wouldn't come out for a long time. A job well done. Not perfectly, like I said, there's some things I just can't explain, but I think I did good, all things considered. I can't wait for this video to be completely disproven when the rest of Encore releases. The kid is really gonna be laughing in my face like, "Say, Ace, what do you think of Gluttony's Encore? Yeah, what's the lore explanation for all the meat and gluttony being gone? Who scooped all the meat out of Gluttony, Ace?" I look forward to it. Well, I think that's it. That's the video. Recording over.